everyone. Welcome back to Journeying with Janay. Today is the episode that I've honestly been waiting on throughout this whole entire series because the three women that are sitting next to me, I admire them and I love them with all of my heart. They are part of the reason each of them play a major role in my life, and they're part of the reason why I am the woman that I am today through seeing their examples. And so they were the best choice, I say the perfect choice for this episode entitled The Wife, the Mother, the Professional, but What About the Woman? So as we know, we're in our Layers of Womanhood series. If you have not saw the first two episodes, go back and watch it because it is a building block by being a series, so this won't make sense. So please go back and watch the first few. It is on my YouTube channel, and while you're there, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and hit the little bell to be notified whenever I put up new videos. So ladies, welcome. Thank y'all so much for being here. As I told y'all before the camera, this is just a conversation that we're having in front of a camera. So be yourselves, tell y'all truths, and be comfortable, and we're gonna all support each other in sisterhood. So let's start off so I can introduce them to you. First, I'm going to start off with my lovely mother. This is Jeannie. She has a unique perspective that she's going to share in a little while, but she kind of like changed careers a little bit, but she has been a boss. Like my mom is my everything. She's my example. I know that without her, I would not be sitting in front of this camera because she pushes me to be the best me that I can possibly be, and it's because she is such a great woman. Then on this side, we have my sister-in-law, Melanie. She is a principal, and she's a mother and a wife, and another lady who's just like a boss in her career. She's so confident. Like my sister-in-law exudes confidence. I'm not sure if she really knows it or not, but she does, and strength, because in a little while, once we begin to share our journeys and stories, you will see why I say that. And then on this side of me, last but certainly not least, we have Miss Trinette Wallace. She is the Louisiana State Middle School Teacher of the Year for 2020. So hand claps for her because we are all so very, very proud of her. And she's kind of been catapulted into this new limelight. And I'm like, girl, I got to have you here. Before that even happened, this episode was already in the works. But after that happened, I'm like, yeah, it's no better place than to share her wisdom and just her hard work and tenacity in getting to where she is now. So again, thank you ladies for being here. And now we're going to get into the episode. So the first thing that I want to talk about is our family of origin. We talked about this on the episode with Jennifer, that it is so important to discuss that because it shapes us. Whatever we see in our family kind of shapes our perspective for life, where there's some of the things that we want to carry over into our own personal families, or some things we may want to change. So I'm going to start off with my mom and let her kind of tell her family of origin story.
Thank you, Janay. Thank you so much for having me. I am a product of my mom and dad. There were 7 of us. I'm the youngest of 7. My dad only had an 8th grade education. My mom graduated from high school. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She raised all of us until I was maybe about 13, 14, my mom started working. Had a wonderful life, enjoyed everything about my life, and I thank God for my parents because my parents, even though my dad didn't have a whole lot of education, he really took care of us. He taught us life experiences, and he also showed us a lot of love. My mom was always there for us, helping us with any and everything that she possibly could help us with.
Yeah, my grandparents were amazing, and they amazed me. They were married for what, like almost 50 years?
Almost 50 years when my dad passed.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. I talked about that on the last episode. It's like I have long marriages like all around me, so I have great examples. So Mel, we're going to talk about your family of origins.
Kind of similar. I came from 2 large families. My dad's mom and dad had 14 kids, and my mom had she was the only child, but she had other half brothers and sisters, so they were from a large family. So I'm used to having big families. We had a lot of example examples of hardworking men and women in our family. I grew up, of course, my mom was a teacher for 33 years and my dad was a mechanic for 30 years. So I grew up seeing examples of hard work and just going from day to day, not complaining, just doing what you have to do to get it done. Like I said, my mom taught for 33 years, barely took a day off. My dad hardly took a day off. So I grew up in a house where my parents were great examples. They worked. We saw a lot of teamwork. It was 3 of us. We were all 3 years apart. So my dad would come home after working in the mechanic shop all day, and he would cook, he would wash clothes. My mom would come home and grade papers, and we saw this day in and day out. And it just shaped the way I am today, my work ethic, just seeing my parents, and even my grandparents too.
Right, and I love how you said that, like, your parents had the teamwork, because I think that's so important in marriage. It's like you should be friends and teammates above anything, because it's like marriages, I think it was Bishop T.G. Jakes, he was saying how you should be so careful when you choose that partner, because that's the partner that you're going to go through life with. That's the partner that you're going to be sick with. That's the person who's going to stand and hold your hand when you're losing parents and other things. So it's so important to have that teamwork. So Miss Janay, what about you?
Well, I am the youngest of 5, and just like Mel, is very similar. My mom was an educator. My dad worked at a chemical plant. He was an operator there, but that teamwork was present. One thing my parents did for my sisters and my brother and I was spoke positive affirmations over us. My dad would call my sister his $1 million girl. It's still to this day, Tasha, if you watch it, she still thinks she's worth $1 million. My twin sister, we were the dynamite twins, but they always spoke love and protrude that throughout the home. You know, they always telling each other they love us, they loved each other. So when I grew up and got married, that's what I saw in a marriage. I never saw my parents argue. I just saw 2 hardworking people just raising their children in a middle class family, and there was nothing that we didn't want, and if we didn't have it, they would work harder to get it.
Right.
So that's just like Mel, it shaped me to the woman I am today.
Yes, ma'am. And I know you said that your dad passed in.
Yes, my dad passed away. He actually, well, at the time we didn't know, but he had myasthenia gravis, which was a disease that paralyzes the muscles in your body. I remember him couldn't breathe, would walk from one end of the house to another, barely could catch his breath. But I have to share this story with you. At a young age, when he was going through this illness and sickness, the last day we saw him, we went and visited him at the hospital, me, my mom, and my twin sister. And he kept telling my mom, Sonia, I want you to find my gray pajamas. He and my mom's wedding anniversary was going to be that Wednesday. And my mom said, what else? She looked all over the hospital in the room, and she said, I can't find the pajamas. I want you to find it. Well, after he passed away that night. So that was the last time we saw him. And later on, after about 2 weeks or so, she was going through his hospital stuff, and she found those gray pajamas, and in the pocket of the gray pajamas, she found a note that he had written, and he said God showed him Tuesday night.
Wow.
He talked about my sister. He said, don't forget about the run. Are you in Run House? $1 million girl. So he had little messages for all of us. I was 14, had just turned 14 at the time, and that's when I knew that God is real and he's present. Even when you're in your last breath, God is with you. So I think once I saw that at 14 years old, I knew that that was my faith, and I knew there was a God. If he was with my dad in his last hours, he was going to be with me throughout my journey. So I had to share that with y'all. So if you don't believe, if you don't, anybody listening, if y'all don't believe in God or have a relationship with him, start having a relationship with God, because I don't want to cry, but every time I think about that, knowing he wanted my mom to see this, he wanted us to see this, and knowing that God was with him and it was going to be okay. So
Yeah, I love that story. Woo, yeah,
Yes.
we got. I love
too heavy at the
that. I love that you shared that with us though, because I know Mel, you lost your dad about 1.5 years ago. Mom, Papa's been deceased for like
It's 2002.
so 18 years now. But just to see, like you said, how God carries us through every phase in our journey, in the phases that we think that we can't make it through, he carries us through. And I know Mel and I would always talk because we're huge daddy's girls.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like I think all of us up here are daddy's girls.
Daddy's girl.
And Mel and I would always talk about that unimaginable feeling of losing a dad, but Mel, going through that loss, she has exhibited so much strength. And we're gonna get to that in our next part about talking about their journeys to marriage, motherhood, and career. But just a little spoiler, Mel was pregnant when she lost her dad, and the strength that I seen her just display, and of course I know, like you always said, it was God carrying you through, because she was so graceful in the midst of it. And like you were saying about being graceful in the midst of it, and then your dad having his funeral the day before your birthday, Mom. So it's like you'll never forget. And so it's like just seeing, even through loss or whatever we're going through, that God carries us through those parts of our journey is so important. And it's almost that foundation to all three of them being wives, mothers, and professionals. So ladies, I want to start to just talk about y'all journey to marriage, motherhood, and career. Mom, you're going to go last because yours kind of was ever-changing and has such a unique perspective that we're going to save you for last on that one. But Trinette, I want to start with you first. What was your journey to meeting your husband into career and motherhood?
Where should I start? So I attended school in Assumption Parish. I am from Pinkerville, Louisiana. I graduated from Assumption High, and when I graduated, I wanted to be a physical therapist. So when I went to LSU, I graduated in kinesiology and was waiting to get into PT school. And while I was waiting for PT school, someone approached me about going teach. I was like, I don't want to teach. I was working at a hospital at the time in their physical therapy department. So I decided to give it a try, and when I started teaching, I was like, wow, I like this. This working with kids, this comes natural to me.
Right.
So while I was teaching, let me back up. My best friend Blair, we had went out on my last day at LSU, and we ended up, Brooks gonna get mad at me saying this. We were at a club here in Thibodeau, and Brooks came and approached me, and he was like, you're dating anybody? I was like, no. He said, well, you never met anybody like me before. I'm like, oh my God, no. You are too arrogant. Yeah,
He was forward
yes,
and bold.
Forward and bold. He was telling me all of his, like where he graduated from and his family. Now I'm from Pinkerville, didn't know anybody. But in any case, it evidently worked because I ended up, once I began teaching, that's when as I'm teaching, I'm also working on my master's degree. Brooks and I got married while I was working on my master's degree. A year later, I had my son. I graduated with my master's in December, and then in January, I started working on my teaching certificate. So everything started happening very quickly.
Right.
And how far you want me to go? What you
Keep
want me to
going. Keep
What
going.
you want me to say?
Keep going. This is your journey.
But throughout that, and trying to navigate, into this new role of not only being a wife,
Right.
a mother, I'm a student because I'm working on all these different certifications. It was very challenging, to say the least, and very, very difficult. Again, I talk about my faith so much because if it was not for my relationship with God, and you got to know Him for yourself to talk about it.
Right.
You got to go through some things.
Not religion,
Not
but
religion.
Not religion, but
relationships.
Yes.
Not religion, but relationships. It would test your faith. It would test your marriage. It would test your womanhood and your self-esteem and
Right.
say, okay, I don't know if this for me or if it is for me. So I often tell people I really think about my relationship with God and where, and like you're saying, journeying, you got to have that journey with Him.
Yes.
He got to be with you the whole time. I would not be sitting with you and your mother and my beautiful friend had it not been for God, because I wouldn't have became middle school teacher of the year. I would not have been a wife still. I would not be Trinette. And when I say Trinette, because you lose yourself along the way.
Right.
So that's my journey.
Oh, and then Ava. You didn't
Girl,
mention Ava.
yes, I didn't mention my kids. I didn't mention my beautiful children. I had Deuce in my second year of marriage, and then we decided to have Ava. Jesus. Yes.
Those girls
Yes,
always
those
come
girls.
through.
Yes,
They,
yes.
trust me, I'm the baby and I'm the only
Yes,
girl,
so-
so I could pretty much imagine
Yes.
her experiences
Yes.
with Ava and the stories. Yeah, Ava is amazing. So like you heard Trinette's foundation, like you said, was God, and getting to go through all of that at one time, girl, that's
It's
a lot.
It is a
That
lot.
is
It
a
is
lot. But her journey, I know, has strengthened her into the woman that she is, that she said. So Mel, what about your journey? What did you kind of start off with first?
Well, my journey, the saying, what God has for you is for you, that's my story. Just, I kind of went into my career very early. I was 21. I became a teacher. My first teaching assignment, the kids were bigger than me, and I taught 4th grade. I had braces, and I looked like one of the kids. But I worked throughout the years, and throughout my career, I kind of moved up very quickly. I became an assistant principal. I was 27 and a principal at 29. So my career kind of happened very quickly. So life, kids, marriage kind of came after. My story is a little different. Norman and I, let me see where I start. The first, second, or third time. Norman and I,
Not to cut you off, but any ladies out there, anybody listening, I always say my brother and my sister-in-law is the picture, the example, whatever you want to say, of what's meant for you and what God has for you is for you, no matter how many ups, downs, hills, and mountains and valleys you got to climb to get to it. If it's for you, it's going to be for you.
yes. So fast forward, at the time, Norman and I met on the job. I was a master teacher, so he came in as a substitute, and I was checking him out. I was checking him out. I was the hard-headed one. I just didn't know where I wanted to be at that point. We kind of dated, we talked, we hit it off very quickly, had a lot in common. He was somebody I saw myself building a future with. But the devil has his way, gets in your head, and kind of throws you off the path that God had planned for you. So throughout my journey, Norman and I kind of separated, went our separate ways, and I got married. Thought I heard the voice of God, but I didn't. Got married, and I was married for 2 years and got a divorce. And I can tell you at that point I went through a rough time in my life, because a lot of you out there can attest to this. When you get a divorce, it's like a death.
Right.
I come from a family that most of the marriages were 30, 40, 50 years. So being in a family that has marriages that are, lifetime marriages, and having a divorce after 2 years, I kind of felt like a failure, because every point in my life to that point, things came to me. I had a relationship with God. Things came to me, worked hard, never really had a big failure in my life. So that threw me off my tracks, and it allowed me to see, yeah, you're human, you just like everybody else. So after the divorce, God allowed Norman and I to connect again. We kind of lost touch again, and about a year, 2 years after that, the last time we connected was the final time. Once we connected again, I knew, my mom knew all that time because she was reminding me when I was saying what she said, yeah, Norm. She always brought up Norman's name, like she was his biggest cheerleader, even my brother too. And I knew in my heart and my mind that he was the one for me. I just, being a knucklehead and not listening to the voice of God, it threw me off my track. But we came together and it didn't take long. We knew that we were meant to be together. Right. And we got married. And early on, our marriage was attacked. We're both believers, both have relationships with God. About a year after we got married, 6 months in that time span, I became pregnant and lost our first child. I was about maybe 8 or 9 weeks pregnant. So at that point, I went through a depression, just a big period of grief, just thinking about the child that we could have had. And yeah, I remember that doctor's appointment so vividly, just seeing on the screen the lady telling me, ma'am, your baby doesn't have a heartbeat anymore. And that stuck with me, and I just, from that moment on, I knew Norman, anybody that knows Norman knows what type of person he is. He's just genuine. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have gotten through that moment without him. He was so supportive, he just helped me get along through that. And he's an amazing person. I thank God every day that he put him back in my path. So fast forward, we became pregnant again, and we have our rainbow baby, beautiful Noe. Big personality. God knew what he was going to give me. Girls. I was a tomboy when I was young, so God knew what he was doing, giving me 2 girls. So comes along Noe, and then 15 months, but separating them, we have Nia, who was a huge surprise. And she has a big personality as well. So my journey started. I started my career. I bought a house at 25. I had all of that at the beginning. I picked up and go when I wanted to. My life was kind of my own. Right. And now motherhood just came crashing down like a tidal wave. And it's like everything I knew, living by myself, in my career, full steam ahead, and motherhood happened, and it slowed me down. And it actually made me a better person to appreciate life and appreciate what I have. My girls are my everything. My life now is centered around them. And I thank God for putting Norman in my path again and also blessing me again to have kids. But I'm not the traditional story. Motherhood and wife came a lot later. Right. So
you are blessed. Norman is good.
Amazing person.
Amazing person.
And Norman is truly blessed to have.
Yes,
Norman,
blessed to have you.
You are so wonderful.
Yes, I've always, if anybody follow me like on Facebook or anything, for Mel's birthday, when I did her birthday post, I said I always wanted a sister-in-law who wasn't a sister-in-law but a sister, someone that I could confide in like a sister, because it was just me and my brother, and we are like so super close. We tease and say we're twins, just 13 years apart, but it's some certain things that once you grow older you can't talk to a brother about, and you need that sisterhood. And I found that in Mel, and I was so thankful. So it's like, I'm like, girl, what Norman at? Because we need to have a conversation. I'm like, oh, we need to have a conversation.
Myself, too, I have 2 brothers. Besides my friends, I never had a sister as well. So that's why I grew up as a tomboy.
Right. Yeah. So it was like amazing to have, finally have that true sisterhood, and then of course have my babies. Oh my God, Noelle and Nia are my world, because I always say I love them so much I can't even imagine when I have my own, the love that grows and expands. So, Mommy, now we're to you. I'm going to turn a little bit, because your story is very interesting. So, start telling your truth, ma'am.
Telling my truth. Okay, as I said at the beginning, I'm the baby of 7. I, too, was a daddy's girl. Daddy was my world. I graduated May 23rd of 1983. I got married July 23rd of 1983. 6 months later, November 16th, I became a mom. So all of that in 1 year.
I like to say 83 was the busiest year.
Yes, it was. I went from being a single young lady to a married woman to now a mother.
At 18.
At 18 years old.
Wow.
Yes. And I too have to say it was nothing but God. Truly God. When we got married, Norman and I, we didn't even have a car. We used to use the baby stroller, and we would stroll to the grocery store and make our groceries and then go back to our apartment, stroll back to the apartment, because at that time IGA was open and we were living like right around the corner from there. We stayed together. We were at one point where we really didn't have a whole lot. I can remember us making candy, selling candy to make sure that we had food. I can remember us walking the neighborhood, just looking around, you know, just spending time with each other. Norman was premature. Let me back up. Norman was premature. His birth date was supposed to be January the 2nd, but Norman came November 16th. And it was a lot, I can truly say, because when Norman was born, his lungs collapsed. He was 4 pounds, 4 ounces, lost 2 ounces, and they gave him a 50-50 chance of living.
So you dealing with all this as an 18-year-old?
As an 18-year-old, I had to deal with all of that. But I thank God for family, because we had both my parents and his parents. And so we had dated, go back a little further, we had dated ever since high school, so we were high school sweethearts. After that, we moved back in with my parents because Norman lost his job. So while we were there, he ended up getting 2 jobs. He started working offshore, lost that job, got laid off offshore, and then he ended up working at a sawmill he worked at the sawmill, and he worked at Rouse's.
Oh yeah.
He worked 2 jobs. He did work offshore for a while, but then he got laid off offshore. Then he started working at the sawmill. He left that job, and then Norman also started working at Grenier, and then he was working Rouse's, 2 jobs to make sure that he supported his family. So he's always been an awesome man. He's not, most people may think, well, oh, he's the pastor, which he became a pastor. They'll think that, well, he's just acting like that because he's a pastor. No, he's always been that way. Norman's always provided for his family. He made sure that Norman and I had, and he went without.
Right.
And if you come to the church, you know he always tells his story that he had this one little blue suit. And what he would do was make sure that Norman and I had something, and he would always switch up the shirt and tie just to make sure that, you know, he would have something different on. But it was the same blue suit. But I thank God for him because he put family first before himself. After that, Norman started working at Coca-Cola. And at that point, I started working at Pizza Hut. I started off as a waitress at Pizza Hut, and then I moved up to manager position, worked my way up. And that's when Norman got hurt at Coca-Cola, hurt his back, and then that was in 2003. And then January of 2003, then in March of 2003, I got hurt at Pizza Hut. So we were both at home, workman's comp, living off of workman's comp. And when I tell you that God is good, we live better living off of workman's comp than what we did when we were working. And people might say, oh, that can't be true. No, because God provided. And we didn't miss a beat. All our bills was paid, all the children had clothes, they had food, they had everything that they needed. 13 years later, after we had Norman, then we had Janay. Because we both told each other that we wanted to make sure before we brought another child into this world that we were able to take care of what we had first and then be able to provide for another child. So 13 years later, we had Janay. While working at Pizza Hut, as I stated before, I did get hurt. So I was off from work for a while. So I worked at Pizza Hut from, I would say, 1989 until 2003.
Wow.
Yeah, I worked there. Then I left there after getting hurt and stayed home for a while. And then I started working at Regions Bank as a teller. Work a part-time position as a teller at Regions Bank. While at Regions Bank, my husband became a pastor. Became the pastor of Beulah Baptist Church of Gibson, Louisiana. Not only did I have to deal with being a wife, a mother, and a career, but I also had to deal with being a first lady.
Ooh, child. Which I think is a position none of us Trinette like, if y'all can't hear us, like, because that's a position God bless you, baby.
Again, it's the relationship with God that keep me going.
Right.
Because when you become a first lady, there's great expectations.
Well, that's where I say, because you're now having to not be just Jeannie, but now you're the first lady, in those expectations you have to live up to. You have to look a certain way, you have to dress a certain way, you have to, I don't want to say play a part, but what people see first lady in godly, that's how you got to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
And
a lot.
when I first became a first lady, it was always said that the first lady should be adorned in a suit, hat and shoes to match hers with the accessories, with the jewelry and all. And I thought that's what I had to be, that's who I had to be. But then I realized, you know what? This is not who I am, and this is not the woman that God ordained me to be.
Right.
So it was time to put away the suits, put away the hats, and just dress in a nice dress with some shoes. And it's okay to put on my makeup and my jewelry. And then you know what? I don't even have to go in a dress. I could put on a nice pair of slacks and a blouse and just be who I am. Just be Jeannie.
Right.
Yeah, and we talked about that. I think it was the first episode, the expectations of being the first family, because in the Baptist faith, just like we have a first family president, first family, they call the pastor, his wife, and children the first family. And so the pressure of being the first family and having whatever community your dad or husband pastors in, having that, the kind of growing up in the limelight and having the expectations of his, like she said, his wife should dress a certain way, his children should be this way. I'm not supposed to make mistakes. And for y'all who may not know, when my dad started ministry, I was 4. When he started pastoring, I was 6. So it's all I ever knew. So it was like, for a while, me and my mom both went through our journeys of having to own who we are outside of being a PK and outside of being a first lady, which I said she had such a unique perspective, because you're used to being a career woman and working your way up, of course, being a mom at a young age, and now I'm being catapulted into this spotlight of being first lady, and I'm expected to be a certain way, instead of you taking me as I am and looking at my relationship with God, which is why, going back to what we were saying earlier, it's not about religion, it's about the relationship.
Yes.
The relationship is so important. So now that we've laid the foundation and y'all have the stories of these ladies, I want to kind of pivot into talking about balancing marriage, motherhood, career. And do y'all ever feel, one, overwhelmed by it all? And do y'all have any, mom guilt and wife guilt? Like, y'all don't feel like y'all devote enough time to y'all husbands and children? And who would like to talk about that first? Whichever one of y'all want to go first.
I could. The balancing, that's something I still struggle with to this day, because, and Janay knows this, I'm a perfectionist. Recovering perfectionist.
Yeah, we're recovering from it together.
And it was just seeing my dad and my mom always giving 100%. And I've always, everything I've done, I've always given 100%. So when I can't, I beat myself up. And I take everything that I do seriously, being a wife, being a mother, being a principal, just being a sister, a friend, all of those things I take seriously. So balancing is something I'm still struggling with, but I feel like I'm getting a better handle on. Just, you know, as my role during the day as a principal of a school, 300 plus kids, a faculty of 40 people, my parents, other stakeholders that I work with. I have relationships with my faculty is like my family. 2 weeks ago, I went to 2 funerals for 2 faculty members of mine. So my role during the day requires me to put a lot forward because of responsibility. Motherhood is a huge responsibility. Making sure the girls have what they need. Having girls, you have to make sure the bows match the dress and everything else.
Right.
And being a perfectionist, sometimes I go overboard, and Norm is telling me it's okay. The diaper bag don't have to be perfect. So I've gotten better with that. Being a wife, I have an amazing husband, very understanding. A lot of times when you're putting 100% into everything, something's not getting 100%.
Right.
Just making sure that I'm keeping myself up, because as a mom, you know, you think about your kids first. Now when I go into a store, it's okay, what I could buy for the girls.
Right.
And I put myself on the back burner and forget that I'm married, my husband married me. I'm the woman that he fell in love with. I need to make sure that, and not that he minds, but on my end, I have to make sure that I'm doing everything that I need to do to keep myself up, and, you know, to put energy into my marriage, going on date night, just talking and being present. Because, you know, when you work all day and you're putting all the energy forward during the day, you come home and it seems like you have nothing left to give. So, yeah, there is guilt that sets in being a mom and being a wife. When you come home, you want to be present.
Right.
And a lot of times you want to just turn on the TV, eat a good meal, and go to sleep. But, you know, it doesn't stop when you get home. It just starts again. But it's not work, because I love my husband, I love my kids. Motherhood is not hard. Being a wife is not hard. It's just balancing everything.
Right.
And it comes easy to me because I love my husband, I love my kids. It's just balancing everything. It's like juggling balls. You can't juggle 1,000 balls. One of the balls are gonna drop. You just have to make sure it's not a ball that's high priority like your kids. You just have to, put things in perspective. Is it important? If it's not important, then put it on the back burner. But one of the things I'm struggling with is making sure I'm present for Norman and for the kids. And that's what I'm working on. Turning it off, not being a principal at home, coming home and being a wife and a mother. And that's something I'm getting better with. But I think a lot of women, you know, I work with a lot of moms, that's kind of the sticking point, just trying to balance it all.
Right.
And not trying to be perfect, but just be present and being there for your family.
Right. And so Trinette,
So with me, basically the same thing. I think, like I said, Mel stated that she started her career, her career started very early on, and then she got married. I got married while I was working and building on my career and getting my, furthering my education. And during that time, there's no book on how to be a perfect wife or how to be married. So you're just going through the motions the best way you can. And that's, at that time, that's what I was doing early on in my marriage and having a young son. Balancing has always been my issue and my struggle. My husband, his career took off way quicker than mine. My husband started out at Coca-Cola as a accounts manager, and then he got hired for a pharmaceutical company as a representative. Now he's currently an area business leader, so he's home not home very often. He travels a lot. So me trying to juggle and feeling like I have to do it by myself. I'm taking care of the house. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm making sure that I'm doing my job from 7:30 from 2:45 to be a wife. It became overwhelming.
Right.
At one point, I started to have a little resentment toward him. Because I was like, okay, you always gone, and I'm here trying to maintain and keep this family unit together, and I lost me. I am so happy that I have a husband that, and I don't know if male, if you feel like that, or Miss Jeannie, as women you feel like you don't say anything. Whatever is going on, whatever you feeling, okay, I'm not going to tell Norman, I'm not going to tell Brooks, I'm going to just deal with it, and I'm going to just, going through that, you hurt yourself. Because they don't understand what you're going through, so you're snapping, you're getting upset, you might start arguments behind not communicating. But once I communicated with them, Brooks, I can't do all of this by myself. He was like, well, why do you feel like you're doing it by yourself? Why not, let's do some things to help you become a better mother. Let's do some things that help you become a better wife. If we have to get somebody to help you clean a house, that's one less thing you have to do. Right. Why, when you come home, instead of you going, hurry up, cook the food, I'm going to give you 40 minutes just so you can get your woosah from school, just so you can take a deep breath. Then you can come back refreshed and help us be whatever you need to be. So I thank God that my husband, throughout the years, now it took some time, but we learned how to communicate what we needed from each other and what I needed. Just like Mel said, as women, you put yourself on the back burner and you don't take care of yourself, not only physically, but mentally. And you carry that weight with you. Right. And when you carry that weight with you, other people can feel it. The tense. Yes. And when you go to work, I'm a school teacher, Mel is a principal, so she understands what you're feeling, the kids will feel, your co-workers will feel. So at one point, I think I was bringing that resentment, not anger, but a little bit of bitterness, sadness, because I lost myself. Right. I wasn't taking care of me because I wanted to make sure my children were okay, my husband was okay, this house is okay. But as women, we have to do a better job of making sure, and I'm just speaking for myself, do a better job making sure that we okay. Because if we're not okay, our family will not be okay. Yes. If we're not happy, our family will not be happy. So I think, and I talk about God, I think having a relationship with God and taking that time for yourself, I think that helped me tremendously overcome. And I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to balance it all. But it's better. And it's better when you have someone that you can communicate that with and understand. Like you said, Norman is a godsend to you. My husband has been a godsend to me, just working it out and how we're going to make this better, because we got to do it together. We did it for better or worse. So it's better or worse. We're going to get it worse better before we make it go worse.
Right. And it's so, like you said, important to talk about communication, understanding, as well as mentally taking care of you. And when you said, it was a powerful thing that you said, that it made me think about something I learned in therapy. My therapist was telling me that anger is a secondary emotion, and most of the time we allow the anger to surface instead of working through, like you said, it was the resentment, it was the bitterness, the sadness.
I always felt, and I never told him, but with his job, he travels a lot, and he's staying in hotels, and he get to eat at restaurants, and I'm like, we eating hot dogs tonight. You getting to fly out of town, and even though it was still work, in my eyes, I'm like, okay, but I'm still here juggling the kids and my job and taking care of the house. So the bitterness does set in. But then when you have to communicate and have an understanding of what your role is, you're doing it together. And I saw my mom, like you said, I saw my mom and my dad, they did it so seamlessly. It seemed like they never argued. Like it just came together and it meshed well together. Right. So when I got married, that was the expectation that I had in the back of my mind. Even though they were hard work and they had this together and you never saw it. So Yeah, so as women, we have to every Friday I go get my hair done. You already know. Even and it's not just because I want my hair done. You need that me time.
Right.
You need that me time. Yeah.
Yeah, and how long have y'all been married now?
11 years.
So 11 years, Mel, y'all.
Going on 4 years.
Going on. Wow.
I know.
It's like, we feel like we was just planning the wedding. Like, that's why I was like, wait, yeah, it is going on 4. And then
37.
So now we about to get some real
I know,
good advice from the going for the 37 years of marriage. And like she said, it is for better or for worse. Sickness and health, for rich or for poor. Like, you go through everything together. So it goes back to having that teammate, that partner, that friend that you can do all of those things with to make sure that you said nothing falls and we do it together and everybody is still intact mentally and emotionally, because that is so important. So now, Mom, you, girl, I'm just gonna let you talk, because you being a teenage mom and then, like I said, the ever-changing careers and becoming a first lady, and now you got to say you are an entrepreneur with your baking business.
Yes, I am.
So, how do you feel like you balance it all and juggle it all, and do you feel any wife guilt? I wouldn't necessarily say mom guilt, because your children are grown
And now grandkids.
and now grandkids, so I don't think you would necessarily have the mom guilt, but I know you do like take care of Noel and Nia while Mel and Norman work. So how have you balanced it through the years? That would be a better posed question for you. How have you balanced it through the years, and what have you found over the past 37 years that maybe worked or what didn't work?
Okay, like the two of them said, it's hard balancing it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've been married 37 years, it was hard balancing it, because when I was working at Pizza Hut and working at the bank, it was like I felt like I neglected you and Norman. Y'all were neglected because I was at work, and I felt I didn't spend enough time with the two of you that I needed to. Not so much as Norman, because I didn't work when Norman was
So he was like six, right? When he went to school.
I started working then. So Norman didn't go to nursery school. I was his nursery school teacher. I stayed there and I taught Norman everything that he needed to know. So when he went to kindergarten, he was able to pass his test to get in. With you, I was working, so I missed your first steps, and you first time you said mommy and daddy. So that kind of made me feel guilty, but I knew I had to work in order to make sure that you had the things that you needed.
Right.
And to make sure that Norman still had what he needed. And then it was kind of difficult, because when your dad started working at Coke, he was working a night shift. So he would be coming home in the morning from work. I would be leaving out in the morning going to work.
Wow, yeah.
So we basically didn't spend a day together until on a Sunday, when we both were off on the Sunday. So it's kind of like we were both neglecting each other, I would say.
Right.
Because you go to work, and then you had a hard day at work, and then you come home, and then when you get home, you have to take care of the kids, you have to take care of the home, you have to cook. So when do you really have time to spend with each other? You know, that was the thing. So it's like on a Sunday, we were trying to cram in all that time together, make sure that we had time with each other. First thing that we would do, well, we would make sure we go to church on a Sunday. Then when we came home, it was like we was trying to juggle our schedule. Okay, let's go spend time at his parents, let's go spend time at my parents, and then make sure that we spend time with y'all. But through the grace of God, we did make it through that.
Right.
You know, so having a relationship with God is the best thing that I can tell you.
Yes.
Make sure that you pray for your mate. You have to truly pray for your mate. And conversation. Make sure that y'all still find time to say, hi, how you doing? How was your day? I love you. Make sure you even give compliments. You look really handsome today. And make sure that you spend time with your children. It's hard, but you got to make sure that you spend time with your children and make sure that you know what's going on with your kids. Making sure that they had a good day at school, or making sure that everything is okay with them in their personal lives. It's a lot on your plate, but God does give you everything that you need to make sure that you succeed.
I agree. And one thing later on in our marriage, I found that really helped us is setting date nights.
Exactly.
Last year when we made 10 years, before we made 10 years, we promised each other, because what they have is a saying like, if you could get through your first 5 years of marriage, you're good.
Right.
So we told each other, look, if we get to 10 years, we're going to celebrate that. So we planned to travel, do 10 trips for 10 years. And that was the best thing we could have ever done for our marriage, because we were always looking forward to that next trip.
Right.
We were always talking about, okay, what we doing next? That next trip, because that brings you closer together, that brings you with the talking. So I'll tell anybody, just also setting that time for you and your mate, just to be present with each other. And when we go, we barely on our cell phones, we just doing whatever we need to do to reconnect. So because I notice our family is much happier now. We're happier, the children are happier, because the children see what you're seeing.
Exactly.
You know, they bring about, if they, like Noelle, if they see you kissing Norman, oh daddy, give me a kiss.
When she
Yes.
pushes us away now.
Yeah, girls are
She
very
doesn't want any more
territorial.
siblings. She's trying hard. She's trying
So
really
yes,
hard.
that's important. I think it's truly important.
It is. Date night is so
Date night.
important.
Date
It's
night.
very important. Even though we've been married 37 years, we still have date night.
Yes.
We have date nights. Even if we just get in a car and just go ride and just
Yeah.
listen to
Yes.
music, is so beautiful.
Mhm.
And I told Janay, I said one day we had gone to the church to do something, and she had to go run an errand, and me and her dad went home, and we were sitting under the carport, and we was just sitting there listening to music, just talking to one another. That was awesome.
Just the talking.
Just the talking. Just the talking. And a couple of years back, he did a marriage seminar, and the title was "Keep It Fresh."
Mhm.
And you have to find things and find ways to keep your marriage fresh. And even if, just like last week, Janay and I went to the store, and I came back home, there was a gift bag sitting on the table. And so Janay said, what's in the gift bag? And he teased with her. He said, oh, it's something for you. And when she looked in, she said, it's not for me, it's for Mom. And
I was a little salty.
you were. And so it was a beautiful card telling me how much he appreciated me, how much he loved me. And inside the bag was candy. When we dated, we had this favorite candy. It was a Heat bar. So he had a bunch of Heat bars in the bag. And to me, that meant so much. And Janay and I was just talking about that earlier today. Sometimes people look for the big picture, the big things. But like I told her, it's not always the big things. For me, it's the little things. You know, just that gift bag with the candy in it. That was so sweet. That was so nice. We go to the store, and we have this thing now where we'll get in the bed and watch TV, and he loves M&Ms. So I make sure when I go to the store, I'm getting his M&Ms to make sure that he have it at night. So it's little things. It's not the big things. It's the little things, you know, that really help you and make you realize what you have. You know, Norman is an awesome father, awesome grandfather, and an awesome husband. I couldn't ask for a better husband. I truly couldn't have. He makes sure that everything is taken care of. He makes sure that Janay and I, we go get our feet done, our nails done. He's making sure that she gets hair done. I mean, it's always things that he's making sure that we have to make sure that the house is running smooth. If it's washing dishes or if it's washing clothes. He used to cook, but he don't do that. But it's okay. It's okay. I still love you, honey. But whatever he can do to make it easier for me at home and to make it easier for her, because she is a daddy's girl, a very spoiled daddy's girl. You know,
When Norman was listening, Norman Jr. was listening.
Yeah.
Because he is the same way.
Yeah.
The
yes.
exact same way.
This girl didn't start putting gas in her car until recently.
Like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's bad. One of my friends and I, he knows like a lot about cars. So one day he said, something not right. And I'm like, look, I said, I don't know anything about cars. I just know when the little circle with the exclamation point come on my dashboard, I'm like, Dad. And he's like, okay. Because I don't know anything. But like y'all all said, I think y'all all gave really great advice. with the communication, with the making sure there's date night, the 10 trips for 10 years, the little things that you talked about, and even building throughout your marriage. And I think too, with as people, we should be constantly evolving, which forces our marriage, y'all marriages, to constantly evolve and grow, because it's almost kind of like the person that my dad met at 15 when y'all first met, and he was 17, is not the same person 39, almost 40 years later.
Right.
I saw, I don't know if it was a movie or I read somewhere that they said in marriage, many people are quick to leave when things get bad, but everyone has a season.
Right.
Everyone grows into a different person. Just like the leaves change, a person changes. So if you rush to get out of a marriage, you don't see the good of it because you haven't stayed in that season and see that person change. So I truly agree with that. Like, everybody change I think each change brings a better person, a better you. You know, you were 37, what you said, 30?
We've been married 37 years.
37 years.
We've been together a total of 40 years because we dated 3 years.
Yeah, so 40, your husband, I'm more than sure, isn't the same man.
No.
You married those, and what if you walked away when things got bad? You wouldn't be talking about the M&Ms and the heat bars and the conversations, you know? So,
Yeah, it's definitely important.
And going through trials, we've only been married 4 years, but I can tell you throughout those 4 years, Norman as well, losing basically most of his grandparents in a short amount of time, and me losing my dad and losing the child. Going through those trials together brings you closer.
Yeah, it does.
And it exposes the person that you are. And it makes you fall even more in love with the person that you with to help you through those trials. Like I said earlier, I couldn't have gotten through anything that we've gone through without Norman help. So it's important that making sure that you're in tune with God and you're listening to Him and waiting for Him to connect you with the right person, the person that's going to propel you to your purpose. And Norman, I can tell you, is definitely for me, just everything that's going throughout the day. And he took a lot of news from his dad because he's very intuitive, and you know, it's all about the details for him. And he makes sure that my day and the girls, everybody's good. And as a wife, sometimes I feel like I'm selfish because he's so giving. So I make sure that, you know, I stand back and make sure that I'm giving to him as well, and meeting his needs. Because a lot of times we get in a marriage and we get selfish, and it becomes all about me. What can you do for me? But in a marriage, it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. You have to also do your part too, and it's about pouring into your husband, praying for them, and just making sure you support them as well.
Exactly, because it's with my husband being a pastor, he have to deal with, we have maybe, I'll say about 300 to 400 people, members, and you have all these different personalities, and he's not just a pastor, but he's the counselor. He's there sometimes as a father figure. He played a lot of different roles in our members' lives, and a lot of times he's on the phone talking to them. And one thing about him, he never turns his cell phone off.
Never.
The cell phone never goes off, and he's always answering his phone. It could be 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. He's going to answer his phone, and he's going to say, you know, see what's going on and talk to him. So he have so much that he have to keep within, that he cannot tell to me or to anybody else. It's only between him, the member, and God. So there's no outlet for him. So a lot of times I'm there being a supportive person. I try to be the supportive person to make things a little easier for him, whatever I could do to make it easier for him, because that's a hard job when you have to sit there and you have to listen, and then, you know, you have your own life. You have your own children, your wife, you have so much going on in your own life, but then you still have to sit there and listen to what they're saying, and then you have to give advice, but you have to make sure you're giving them the correct advice, giving them godly advice. So it's a lot, but I'm thankful that, as I told you earlier, I constantly pray for him because he needs the coverage. He needs the coverage. And even though your husbands are not pastors, your husband is out dealing with people every day. Your husband is out dealing with children and people every day. You have to constantly cover them because they have hard days also. And, you know, like she said, sometimes you might feel a little selfish, a little guilty about it because it's like, you know, you think about it. It could be the least little thing and you might get upset about it and you might snap. But then you stand back and you say, now, did that really make any sense? Should I have really snapped at him after all I've seen him go through, after all I know he's going through? So, yes, we do have to be there for our husbands. We have to be strong women. And we have to definitely have that relationship with God. We have to definitely cover them in prayer.
Yeah, and I'm soaking up all this wisdom because so when I get to that point, like that's why I told y'all they had to be here because I look to them for that wisdom and just seeing them. Trinette and I met much later in life once her and my brother started working together, and at his graduation when he was getting his master's in education, we talked the entire time. Like I heard Norman, we were like, yay, and went back to talking because that was the first time we met each other, but she has literally became another big sister. And I always watch her from afar because we're not around each other very much, but it's the example. It's the, like you say, your husband being gone so much and you still not letting anything drop, especially not career-wise, or you wouldn't be the Louisiana State Middle School Teacher of the Year. So I admire that. And Mel, you were Principal of the Year once, correct?
About 5 years ago.
About 5 years ago, her being Principal of the Year and seeing how my sister-in-law goes in and literally turns schools around. We have a joke amongst the family. Her maiden name is Wallace. We used to call her Shut It Down Wallace because we went to help out for something and she got on the intercom. I think it was like a fall fun day or something.
It was a fall fest.
And we went to help out and she was telling the kids how they were supposed to act. She said, or Miss Wallace will shut it down. And I admire that about her because she demands respect, but in a graceful way.
Yes.
Can I say something real quickly? One of the things I struggle with my job is coming home and not stepping out of my role and not allowing my husband to be the husband and the leader of the house. And that's something I struggle with very early on. And I'm getting better with, you just have to make sure you put everything in perspective, not coming in and trying to make decisions. I have to keep in mind my role biblically in the Bible is to support my husband and to pray for my husband. And that's one of the things I struggle with, being in a role where I'm in charge and coming home and I have to remind myself, you are not the principal of this house.
Right. And bring Shut It Down Wallace.
Right.
Yeah, so like I was saying, this part of it, because this is a 2-part series, so this will be the end of the first part, where they talked about and gave their wisdom and how they balance and how they just hold it all together essentially. And you've seen the common thread has been God. It has been God, it has been communication, it has been loving on your partner. And now we're going to get to the part, because the episode is entitled The Wife, the Mother, the Professional, but what about the woman? Because as women, we neglect ourselves a lot. So this was part 1. I know if you have not came away, any takeaways from this episode, if you don't have none, something is seriously wrong, because all the wisdom and knowledge that they sit here and just freely gave and telling their truths, I really hope that just like I was sitting here soaking it in, you were as well, and that you can take so much from it and apply it now to your life, to your marriage. If you're married, that can help make it better. If you're like me and in a position that you're not there yet, I now have this wisdom so I can go forth in my marriage. And I think Trinette said she didn't have a book or a playbook to how to be a wife, But thankfully for these three ladies, they're giving me and everyone who's watching that playbook of this is what worked for my marriage, and you can take a little bit of something each one of them said, and help it work for your marriage, help it work in your motherhood and in your career. So this has been part 1 of the wife, the mother, the professional, but what about the woman? And part 2, we're gonna dive into the actual woman. We're gonna start to take care of ourselves a little bit more, and they will give us some advice from there. So thank you all for watching. Stay tuned next week for part 2 of the wife, the mother, the professional, but what about the woman? And thank you all for coming along with me on my journey as we turn pain into purpose. Bye.